nothing says I'm important like screaming, "I'm really important" into a cell phone in the middle of an airport.
I've never tried that.
Don't do it. You know, it's really annoying when people are yelling in an airport, no matter what.
It is. You're right.
Even the you can always tell on the phone when someone's in an airport. You can just hear that over the speaker system. You can always hear it in the background. It's very specific to airports. They must engineer the sound to sound that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then they partner with Hollywood to make sure that it always sounds that way, and they keep recreating the system over and over. So welcome to Hacking Business Technology, the longest introduction we've ever done. We thought we needed to do one.
Welcome.
What's funny is we always start the show, you know, on Friday morning. I usually just send out a text, or someone texts out, "Hey, I can't make it today. Hey, I can make it today. Yes, I'm in. Yes, I'm out." And today I didn't get any responses, so it's just like I started it up. I got my coffee. Mark was here.
Here we go.
Here we go. So, Mark, last week we talked about IBM laying off a bunch of people. We talked about shadow IT and how I stopped doing shadow IT, and it ended up actually causing some positive change. We're testing some systems, and it got me thinking. It got me thinking about greenfield IT and like new beginnings. And if you were starting, let's say you got funding. Let's say you came up with the next Apple. You came up with the next Mac. You came up with the next big lighter, pencil, whatever. You got a Kickstart funding. You got Kickstarter, and it was successful. It was fantastic. What do you think you're going to look at from a strategic perspective? What are your technical needs right out of the gate? What would you start with in a technical strategy?
Oh, well, I know one thing. I wouldn't start with an IT department. That's for sure. So
make it part of the business.
Yeah, make it part of the business. Start with some technical folks that have the business acumen and understand the value and the vision of the organization. And innovation is key, I think. I've been thinking a lot about innovation, like I often do, but something that's stuck in my head all week is service design is not service management. And that's been kind of something that's been bugging me for the last week, what that means. And basically, I think what I mean there, obviously there's some pieces of every service when you're designing a service that have to do with service management. You know, things you want to control, the warranty side of a service, so your availability, your continuity, those kinds of things. But there's the other side, the innovation side, and service management, kind of the control of that. It can create a space for it, but it can't directly enable it. And it's interesting to me that ITIL or other frameworks don't necessarily have processes that have a specific goal of boosting or creating innovation. And I feel like that would be something important for a new organization, to have tools that make innovation repeatable and sustainable.
Well, aren't you basically talking about R&D? I mean that.
Yes. Yes.
If you think about it, some people use IT or technical R&D or whatever you want to call it, I guess, to innovate and change. So let's pick a stagnant market, dry cleaning, for example.
Okay.
Your local dry cleaners, you know, maybe one of them is less technically savvy and the other one, maybe they're both not technically savvy, and one of them says, well, I could probably get a competitive advantage if I invest in a web checkout system and web delivery system. And,
right.
And I think, the Domino's app where you can see your pizza being made as it's being made, like that transparency. Customers.
And it plays heavy metal. Have you heard the heavy metal version?
No.
Oh, it's so freaking awesome. So you go to Domino's and you order a pizza and you have the thing up on your computer screen, and it doesn't work on mobile, but they have like this heavy metal version, and it's like, your pizza's in the oven! Yeah! It makes me want to go there every time. So I don't know. That's pure innovation.
Yeah, okay, but would you be going to a different pizza shop based on that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what it comes down to is like there are some companies or industries or whatever you want to say that need there are some that are dependent on it, science, research, big data companies. They just need tech and
Well,
they
it
get
doesn't
it.
mean they're going to be successful, though. I mean, certainly, some companies are better than others at innovation, and I just have to believe that it has something to do with, well, how should I say? It's an area that we can improve on by coming up with, if you want to call it, best practices for innovation. I'm not sure that exists.
No, it does. It does. Okay, so this
It
came
does.
up. This came up on a call this morning. This is fantastic. Internal Maryville process team call, and what happened is last week on the same call, or 2 weeks ago, someone brought up generations. Someone said the word millennial,
Hmm.
and I of course have a hard time with that word. I think anyone who knows what ageism is has a hard time with that word. And anyone who's worked with the elderly who are innovative as well, like it seems like it's discounting the people who are not millennials for some reason or another,
Okay.
just because of the way that information is, whatever. And it became like this back and forth, like this battle. So we decided that someone should do some research. And so someone took the initiative and went through an interview process and sent out surveys. How millennial are you? Asked questions, did research online, talked about the job market, how many employees are in which generation in U.S. and Canada. Awesome. Absolutely fantastic content. And I don't remember where I was going with it. So what were we talking about right before this?
Best practices for innovation.
Oh, yes. And one of the people who scored really low on the millennial test, I think he emailed out, he got like a 20 out of 100. He said, "Well, is your assumption that millennials get pushback from leadership on innovation and change?" She said, "Yes." He's baiting her kind of.
Okay.
And then he says, "Is your assumption that the other generations do not get pushback from leadership on innovation and change?" And she said no, which is good because it's the right answer.
Hmm.
But what it did is it lit this spark in my mind that pushback is really like that's a point of failure,
Hmm.
right? We talk about celebrating failure or highlighting failure or learning from failure or making mistakes to innovate and change, and that is one of them. Every time that someone has an idea and they bring it up to their manager, let's say a team lead or director or VP or whatever, or pitch it against some guy at a bar, we should have transparency into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that is the learning. Those are the mistakes, and they're not. It's not something to be ashamed of. Although some people may feel that way, and that's fine. That's a personal thing, I guess. But I think that if we could share that stuff and build a culture where people share those mistakes and they're learning from each other, then we can get beyond doing the same thing over and over and over. So, Sally in marketing has been trying to change the website for 17 years, and she keeps failing because this guy Bob over here doesn't like that. And like then they hire another marketing person to get the website done, but no one knows that Sally's been trying to do this for 17 years. And just imagine the learning that could go on with transparency into just those sort of transactional day-to-day
That's
work.
interesting. Yeah. So, right. So I think there are ways to implement tools and processes to grease innovation. So some of them may be,
That's a gross term. Do not use that.
some of them may be, demand management tools where it's crowdsourcing ideas and everyone has a say because you're looking at it in that. Some of them may just be collaboration and innovating on that front. I've been looking at this tool that's getting kind of hot right now, Slack. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, but I don't remember why. I think you sent it to me, actually.
So Slack is another way that I think organizations are breaking through some of those barriers that keep innovation from happening or sticking. I know it's being used a lot in the DevOps space, to create searchable, dynamic communication between teams on the fly and that sort of thing. So I would certainly look at those right off the bat. I mean, those would be critical systems to me, a lot more than your more traditional back-end systems.
Yeah, ERP, HR, finance. What you would do though is you would hire people in those roles, VP of Ops, VP of Finance, whatever, that understand technically what they need. They already come to the table with their financial tool set. They say, this is the system we're going to use. It ties into all these other systems. It can talk languages. And I know these 17 guys that will do admin work for me on an hourly basis.
Yeah. Yep.
Which would be awesome. If you're a CFO and you have that, come and see me. I can probably find you a job. Oh, that's interesting. I like what you said there about demand management. That really piqued my my curiosity. I wonder how many companies would you estimate give their employees the ability to track demand for their time?
Very few. Demand is terrible. I mean, it's handled so poorly. I mean, first of all, most organizations only care about the demand of their customers. If they do care about the demand of their internal staff, then they do it really in the worst way, where they're fishing for ideas and then basically just knocking them down as if.
Or they do it after the fact and they call it a reorg or a performance appraisal.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that's what makes an organization alive is where everyone's part of that value chain, like literally. But so I don't know. I would focus on a lot of that. I think that's important. It'd be interesting to know what I would do with shadow IT. I mean, do you build an organization? If it's a greenfield and you can start from scratch, would you give the ability for everyone to do what they want and get the tools that they want? Would you have it more grassroots, community-based, or would you try to come up with the best tools from the beginning and then top-down push them out?
I certainly wouldn't get distracted. That's the key. Never get distracted by the tools. It always depends, right? Like if I'm a bootstrap and I'm fulfilling orders, let's say making custom electric guitars, for example. Maybe a whiteboard on the wall is good enough because we just need to track, 6 guitars a year. But if you're pushing out, 4 million pencils a day, you're going to need some system support just to be operational. And then it's like need versus want. And I think like for day-to-day operational, like when you talk about, I like the term authoring system or design suite or whatever you want to call Office and productivity suite.
Productivity.
Yeah, Office and Adobe basically. I mean, those two fulfill all my needs. It comes down to personal preference, and I think like it's about controlling cost and making sure that you're compliant. And I think the industries I've been listing off have been really easy on the compliance scale. A lot of manufacturing, for example. I mean, sure you have some compliance there, but like if you get into the financial world or the litigation world, I think you're probably looking at wanting to spend some more time on enterprise architecture and determining the basis for where your systems are going to live, specifically the compliant data. And if I'm Greenfield IT, the advice I'm going to give is source it. Don't even try to do it yourself. I mean, if you do, take a cautious, contemplative approach. Look at it like price per bit of data, price per time spent. Look at the ROI of sourcing it to someone else versus hiring someone, and then the risk, the legal implication, and then if you are getting into that conversation already and you're that far along in your greenfield, you should definitely be hiring a lawyer because you're going to get into contract management really quick. Because contract management, I mean, that's what IT is now, is contract management.
Right.
It's been there for years.
But so I would definitely start with the idea of let the people who know how to do this do it and source as much as I can. I would start off with that, and only when the risk was obviously and definitively greater to have it sourced would I do it myself. But that's a whole area I don't know much about. I mean, when Target had the breach of their POS systems or whatever they were doing there, I mean, how much money did it really cost them? I don't know. I mean, these security things that people are worried about, I'm not. I'd be curious to know how much it really costs to screw up.
Well, we could get a risk guy on, and actually, he'd probably quote us. I think there are terms within PCI compliance how
Yeah.
much each offense of personally identifiable information or whatever
Mm-hmm.
the information. I think it's somewhere around 10 grand per bit of data or something like that, or per offense maybe. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. It'd be interesting to see if there's a class action lawsuit coming out of that, or if that's just money that the government gets so that they can enforce PCI compliance.
Wow. Can I invest in that? Like the government collecting money for hacking?
For hacks.
That would guarantee our nation's future right there.
Man.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's true. Okay, so no, I like that. You know, it's planning out what you want to actually do and what you want to keep in. I guess if I were thinking greenfield, yeah, that's what I would do from a strategic perspective. Is you have to look at what kind of industry you're in. I mean, that's what's key is that if you're an innovator and you're really like a disruptive change to the market that you're in, you're going to look at tech investment completely different. So let me ask you this then, because it seems to imply anyway that the CIO role then becomes part of the owner's role. Like they have to decide, at least in the small business world or the startup world, the CEO ends up being the person who's making those technical decisions to say, okay, well the CFO is using this system,
Yeah.
the COO is going to use this system, and those two need to talk to each other. Accounts payable is using this, accounts receivable this. I guess, but that only applies in the small world.
Hmm.
I've got a buddy who focuses on enterprise architecture. Of course, I do. And it's funny to see how foundational that is and how common sense it is to just have a map of what technology we're going to use.
Right.
Whenever I hear the term enterprise architecture, I usually think of strong governance. If you are trying to innovate, you get away from that team and stay away from them forever. But funny to hear him present about it. He talked about enterprise architecture as being common sense, which I really like because I think it is. But it's so foundational. So I tweeted it. I said something that an ITIL or ITSM consulting firm will never tell you is that ITIL is really hard. It's really advanced.
Yeah.
Especially when, I mean, innocent incident, you know, whatever, ticket tracking or whatever you want to call it before you get to ITIL, that is foundational. But even if you're a single guy doing support for a small shop, you know that you need to track your stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, well, going back to enterprise architecture, I mean, obviously it gets more complicated the bigger you are. If you have multiple development shops and they're doing things in different languages and using different objects for calendars or whatever it may be, it's the simplest thing. You want to make sure that's standardized. Same thing with designing systems, you know, and the types of databases you use and the types of network topologies and all this type of stuff. If you've only got one person or one small team designing, they are their own enterprise architecture, right? They do what they want, and it's standardized because they're the ones doing it. So, I don't know. It becomes more of a need the bigger you get.
Yeah.
In terms of incident management, let me go further on what you were saying. So I'm still very interested in the idea of an organization without a service desk, without public-facing incident management. There are organizations that are doing this today. I mean, it's not easy to call Facebook support.
Or WordPress.
Yeah. I mean, they design their systems to be, number one, easy enough to use that you don't need training. Number two, knowledge is integrated and preemptive so that it tries to get ahead of you and present it as you need it. And thirdly, they just make it damn hard to call them. So I still love the idea of making knowledge part of the product itself, and then all incidents are major incidents that they know about or they don't exist, right? So I'm curious to see if that's kind of a standard that people could use to implement or to start new companies or to move in a new direction.
Huh. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, it seems to make sense to me anyway.
hmm
I
I
think,
mean, like I said a couple weeks ago, any incident reported is a failure already.
yeah.
It should be obvious to the user that there is an incident, and they should be somehow let known that they don't need to do anything about it, that it's being handled. So not to say you won't have incidents, but just to say users should not have to report them individually, ever.
Well, now, isn't this the antithesis to your answer to the earlier question then?
Okay, which was?
Which was, should you decide on your platforms and what you're going to work with immediately, or do you want to do it later? I mean, if, for instance, I start up and I start with Box.net, and I've got a problem with my Box account, but I can't report an incident from Box because it's this other third-party service that I can't talk with.
hmm
How do you fix that? Do I need like a single point of contact or a knowledge base?
Well, so in that case, they have a very limited feature set that would so yeah, so you should be able to go. I mean, Box actually has a pretty good
Yes.
availability page, so you can go to their availability page. It's broken down.
For example, yes, it's a great service. You probably don't have to report an incident.
Well, I mean, that's the idea, right? So these are the features. They're green or red. These features, I mean, some of these may have the same backend infrastructure and architecture, so it's just it's for the user. So you're going to list it twice because the user thinks that they're separate. So that's an easy way to understand what's up and what's down. I mean, I don't want users to have to go out to an availability page, but within the app, it should be able to tell you, oh, this isn't working right now. We know about that. Even if nobody knows about it, it should be built in the tool that if it can't complete some sort of step, that's the message that's displayed.
Hmm. It'd be interesting to see if that could be replicated throughout an enterprise. Like even just
Yeah.
source support to the tool vendors themselves. Can you imagine a world where IT support is completely done by the manufacturers of the tools? I just can't see it.
I know. I just think it's a good goal, and let me explain why. So many people focus on automation on the back end. If something does go wrong, we want
Than
to
this.
automate things to get it back up. That's great, but it's equally important to automate the knowledge and the communication to the end user
Yeah.
within the tool itself.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of saying error code UX0001, you say turn
Right.
the thing off and back on.
Exactly. You don't say, yeah, yeah, that's perfect. And I think there needs to be more focus on that.
Calm design. So Cote left wherever he was.
Oh, really?
Where was he? I don't even remember now. 451
Mm-hmm.
and went to Convergent. I don't remember. But Cote got a new job. And
Mm-hmm.
then what was the? Oh, dang it! There was some other industry news I was going to share.
Hmm.
Don't remember.
Um, I have a hack that I'd like to share.
Awesome. Let's hear it, dude.
It's a personal security hack.
Oh, nice.
So there's a story that came out this week about an Indian woman on an airplane, and she was groped by a guy behind her, and twice, I guess, and
Yuck.
she got super upset and turned on her video camera and filmed the remainder of the conversation where she berated him, rightly so, and basically, you know, he was apologizing and telling her, you know, oh, I'm sorry, and she said, you chose your action, I get to choose my reaction. And what it made me think about, though, was the power of the video camera in our hands for personal security. And so I've actually decided what I need to do is teach my daughter, if she's ever threatened in any way or in any precarious situation or someplace where she feels at risk, get out your phone, even if you're too scared or too fumbling to turn on your video camera, say your video camera is on and streaming live on the internet. I mean, what a great protection device. I mean, so
Yeah, it's huge. That's why I love services like Ustream. You know, it just makes sense. Turn on the app. It's live and recorded and backed up forever.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful. I remember the other thing I was going to say when we were talking about Comtech. Amber Case posted this on her Instagram. Absolutely fantastic. Instead of it was for a conference review system. So the one that she had taken a picture of was in, I think it's in Sweden, and they have 2 iPads at the door for thumbs up and thumbs down, and you RFID badge your conference badge over the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Quick. Really nice. But she gave a counter example that's even calmer, and I like it because I have to share it. I think it was in Germany, but I don't remember where. But all they have is 3 jars. Oh no, one jar, 3 colors of paper, red, green, and yellow, or red, yellow, green. And then you choose which one you want. So if you green, you really liked it, yellow, and you just put it in this glass jar, and everyone can see, like, by what colors there are sticking out of it. How good is? How awesome would that be for meetings, or workshops, or you go into a tool selection, and you're meeting with an outside vendor, and you just want to say, how did you feel about this? Green, yellow, red. I love that information. I would love that information. Like, when I'm facilitating meetings, that is the #1 thing I want to know. Feedback right away.
I guess we could just make up our own green, yellow, red cards and then give them to the facilitator every time we leave a meeting, just ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
I could give it to my boss after my review. I did a good job.
It'd be tough. Like, you would feel bad telling people that their meeting sucked immediately afterwards. I guess you could just walk out like this, right? I mean, doesn't that send the same message?
Yeah. Well, yeah. If it's only you doing it, though, then you're kind of on the hook for providing, helpful hints to do better.
Yeah, that's true. The best feedback is constructive, not just. And that really does set it up as a me versus you kind of thing, and I don't want to do that. But I do want to say that if you do enjoy our podcast, make sure that you like it, subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe now on YouTube. The iTunes feed is totally hacked. I can't get it figured out. I need to do a 301 redirect permanent, and I just can't figure out the .htaccess file yet, but I'm getting there. I'm figuring it out. But in the meantime, if you'd like to subscribe to our podcast, the feed link is hackingbusinesstechnology/podcast/feed, and you can go to our website to stream all the video and stream all the audio and anything else you want to do, and buy things and don't buy things, and love us and don't love us, but definitely come back next week for more Hacking Business Technology.
Absolutely. Reach out to us.
See ya. Have a